Hi again. Nelson Barbour, Charles Taze Russell, Three Worlds, Plan of Redemption, page 136. The Seven Trumpets. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. That's Revelation 8, verse 6. On the subject of the trumpets I shall say but little, not because the events of each trumpet are not clearly defined in history, but for want of space in the book. I shall confine my remarks mainly to the sounding of the last three, and refer the reader to the writings of Dr. Adam Clarke for the historical application. Well, Adam Clarke was one of the most famous Bible commentators of that day, or generation or two before Barbour. But interestingly, he spells Adam Clarke wrong. Anyway, the sounding of the seven trumpets I understand to shadow forth the events by which the dominion of the beast, the dominion of the last of the four Gentile kingdoms, was to be broken, overthrown, and finally destroyed. After Constantine, the sovereignty was divided into three parts, hence the frequent use of the terms a third part of men, etc., alluding to the third part of the empire, which was under the scourge. And here we may notice the distinction in the language of these scourges, and those which are to come under the seven last plagues. These are confined to a third, while the plagues, which are to be universal, are to be poured out upon all the prophetic earth instead of a third part. Under the first, second, third, and fourth trumpets, these scourges were brought upon the two western parts of the empire. Under the fifth and sixth, the dominion of Rome at the east, at Constantinople, was subverted. Let me see if that's what he meant. The dominion of Rome at the east, at Constantinople, was subverted. Okay, I think he's saying that basically the empire was divided in two. While under the seventh, great Babylon will go down to rise no more. The times of the Gentiles end, and the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of the Lord. The first trumpet was fulfilled by the events under Alaric, the Gothic chief, who commenced these scourges on the empire and styled himself the Scourge of God. The second was brought about by Genseric, whose attacks were mainly from the shores of Africa and on the water. The third under Attila, he's got Attila spelled wrong too. The third under Attila, who first attacked the empire in its eastern possessions and then suddenly, like a falling star, invades the west. Under the fourth trumpet, a third part of two hubs here, it's very badly edited. A third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the empire was extinguished. And by these four, the empire was broken into its 10 fragments. The remaining trumpets, the fifth, sixth, and seventh, are called woe trumpets. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels which are yet to sound. Revelation 8, verse 13. The first of these was under the Saracens, the second under the Mohammedans, and the third and last is the time of trouble such as never was, since there was a nation, at which time many that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. The measure of the first two woe trumpets is given in the prophecy, while the duration of the third woe trumpet, or seventh and last of the series, is to be found indirectly, but with almost equal certainty. The fifth trumpet and first woe began under the Saracens when Othman first invaded the Roman Empire, July 27th, AD 1299, and ended in July 1449, at which date the independence of the eastern possession of the empire virtually passed away. The date of the fall of Constantinople was 2 years after, or in AD 1451. But at the first named date, the Emperor Constantine Diacosus ascended the throne at Constantinople by asking and obtaining the permission of the Sultan, and this exactly makes the conditions of the prophecy. For the empire of the East was not to be exterminated under that, but under the following trumpet, as to them it was given that they should not kill. In verse 5, this being a symbol is political and not literal death, but that they shall be tormented 5 months. 5 months is 5 times 30, or 150 days. And as the time given to measure symbols is itself symbolic, it measures 150 years. During this 150 years, the Saracens murdered, robbed, and taxed the people, while the government at Constantinople was too weak to give protection, and yet taxed and oppressed the people for its own maintenance, until at last the people earnestly desired political death, that their own government might be abolished, and they be permitted to serve only one set of masters. And this all is to explain this verse. And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, but death shall flee from them. Verse 6. One woe is past, and behold, two more woes come hereafter. Verse 12. That the empire did not fall, but that the Saracen chief should grant permission to a Christian emperor to ascend the throne at Constantinople, when he had the power to prevent it, seems strange until we look at the facts. The East had long been urging the Christian nations of Europe to come to their rescue and save Constantinople from the Turks. And the Western nations were continually making promises of assistance, but owing to home troubles, deferred sending it. The Saracens, dreading such interference from the Christian nations of Europe, were thus held in check. But the time was at hand when this restraint was to be broken through, when the four angels, or winds, bound in the great river Euphrates, were to be let loose, that is, the restraint of the Christian nations, the waters of the Euphrates, the waters on which the harlot, mystic Babylon, sitteth, was to be let loose, or taken off, from the Mohammedans, so that the sixth trumpet, or downfall of Constantinople and the East, might be accomplished. Next time, the sixth trumpet, the sixth angel. Put a link into Jacques Ellul's meditations on the effect of the Roman Empire becoming Christian under Constantine. Several videos linked together.